thank you so much for joining us this morning for this training session. We're excited to talk about a tactic which I truly believe in and have participated in myself many times over the years, and that is holding meetings, local meetings we'll be talking about today, in district meetings with elected leaders. So thanks again for joining us, and we hope that, again, you'll take advantage of some of the numerous training opportunities that NC Child will be offering in 2022. We're calling this series our Voices for Kids Learning series, and our main goal is to support child advocates like yourself to be more effective. And we've created a page on our website that lists the training opportunities that'll be offered through NC Child in 2022. And we'll be continuously updating that page with more opportunities and registration links, et cetera. And we encourage you to take a look and share that information with others in your networks. Again, we are recording today's training sessions, and we'll also be sharing the information and materials via email after the training. So again, we've got a rather large crowd for today's training, which is great, but that means that we're going to be asking everyone to please stay on mute and put any questions you may have into the chat box, and we'll do our best to answer those questions as we go along. Again, my name is Adam Sotak. I am the Community Engagement Director here at NC Child. I'll be walking us through some slides for about the first half hour of this training session. And then we're going to be getting into group breakout sessions. And we have created the breakout rooms by geography. We've done our best to kind of group folks together by geography across the state of North Carolina. And when you get into your breakout sessions, that's when you're going to have an opportunity to work on the scenarios that we provided to everyone prior to the training in the reminder email link that went out yesterday. So those scenario sheets is what we'll be working off of, and we'll provide more instructions here at the end of the half hour as we get ready to go into those small groups. And before we do that too, I wanted to just offer Lamine yet another opportunity here to talk real quickly, if she will, about 2022 Kids. This is basically our feature training event that's coming up at the end of March. Lamine?
Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you again. So 2022 Kids is coming up on March 29th and 30th. It is a 2-day event that will take course over the course of 2 mornings. In March, the focus for 2022 Kids is centering the voices of folks who are most impacted in our advocacy work. And so we invite all of you to register for 2022 Kids and sign up and come and join us. We are really excited about the fantastic lineup of speakers that we have, and a lot of the sessions that will build on some of the things that Adam will be walking us through today. So I hope to see you there, and I will kick it back to you, Adam.
Thanks so much, Lamine. And everyone, we're going to try as we go along here. We were having some difficulties in pasting in the links to those scenarios. So I saw, Alicia, you mentioned you didn't have the email with those links. We're going to do our best to pop those into the chat here over the next half hour so that everyone can, at least have those downloaded as a PDF version or what have you to refer to. All right, and just a reminder once again that this information I'm talking about today, some of it is in our advocacy toolkit. Encourage everyone to go online and download that. And the toolkit itself even has worksheets, and most of everything we're talking about during this training comes from one of those worksheets. They have worksheets that you can download and reference also that are related to particular skills. So when we think about why meeting with elected leaders, so doing this is part of a larger strategy to help make change happen. And as you can see from this impact scale that we had shared during our Advocacy 101 training, Meetings with legislators and other elected officials are high impact, or at least we hope that those meetings will be high impact. That's good, but remember that there's a time commitment involved to really hold an effective meeting. And our experiences at NC Child show us that holding well thought out, effective meetings with elected leaders can be one of the most powerful tools we have in our advocacy tool belt. And that's why we're spending a whole training talking about this one tactic and sharing information that we hope each of you will use going forward. And I'll just say, as we're getting into this, I've been a part of these type local elected leader constituent meetings for many years now. It's funny, I think I remember the first time I ever did one was with Representative John Bridgman, who was a Democrat down in Gaston County. Extra points for anyone that remembers Representative Bridgman. This is probably like the year 2000. And I had a group of 3 or 4 advocates from Gaston County that went with me to his real estate office there in Gastonia. And we met and talked with him about the issue of public financing of campaigns for legislative races in the state of North Carolina. And Representative Bridgman was, I think safe to say a very, moderate member of the legislature, et cetera. But those advocates did a heck of a job, and they talked to him and they listed all the reasons why they thought it was a good thing, so on and so forth. And lo and behold, he ended up co-sponsoring one of the pieces of the legislation way back when that we were working on for that. So, I still remember that and have been participating in dozens of those since then. But I guess from just early on attending these type meetings, it really showed me the impact that they can have, especially if you have the right group with the right information around the table. So we're going to talk through some of this stuff. Again, encourage you to ask any questions you have in the chat. I'm going to try to stop speaking here at least by 11:30 so we can go into our breakout sessions. But one thing to think of when we're thinking about meetings with elected leaders is, well, what the heck do these elected leaders do anyways? And we're all represented by folks at multiple levels of elected office, and all of those offices hold unique responsibilities. So whether it's the US president or your local town council member, elected leaders are making decisions that are affecting you in very important ways. And it's important that we understand the roles and responsibilities, at least to some degree, of different elected offices. And this will help you to be a better advocate and will help you to develop good strategies for how to lobby or advocate for issues. And there's a group out of Durham, You Can Vote. Many of you may be familiar with them, but they're a nonprofit organization, and they have some great resources that show the impact that various elected offices have on the issues that we all care about. And so we encourage you to check out the link that's in the presentation here and learn more. I can also tell you numerous times where I have seen advocacy efforts going to the wrong elected official who did not have the power to do what the group wanted them to do, i.e. they were going to a county commissioner when they were supposed to be going to a state legislator, or they were going to a state legislator when they could have been going to a county commissioner, or whatever the case may be. And so just navigating that and understanding what some of those responsibilities are, who has the power to give you what you want, is a very important piece of doing this. So who represents you? So this is something that is also important for not only you to know, but for you to try to encourage others that you're working with to know as well. And so you can review this information on the North Carolina Board of Elections website. And sometimes people are surprised how their representatives may have changed over the years due to redistricting, or maybe they've moved or what have you. So actually what I'd like folks to do, if you'll humor me here, is take just a couple minutes, go to this link here that we've got up on the screen. And I'm going to try to type it in the chat here too, and look up, go to this will help you look up your voter record. And I want you to go in there and look up who represents you in what offices. Let's give that a try right there. Let's take just a couple minutes. By the way, folks, some folks don't know that this is all public record. I can know, if you're registered to vote or not, how often you vote, where your voting location is, etc. But it's not public record on who anyone voted for. That's private information. All right, so as folks are just joining us, we're taking just a minute and giving folks a chance, if they want to go to the voter lookup tool in the State Board of Elections and just take a look in there. Just get refreshed with who those public servants are that are serving you each and every day for the public good. What judicial district are you in? What city council ward, if that's your situation, are you in? What state legislative districts? And who are those folks? Those are all important things that we need to know and understand. So I'm gonna move on, but before I do that, in the chat, anybody find out anything interesting or something you didn't know? All right, thanks everyone. So moving on to the next slide. The other thing, just as a review from the first session as well, this meeting is talking about effective meetings for elected leaders in any office, but we oftentimes focus on the North Carolina General Assembly because a lot of our advocacy efforts, and I know a lot of yours are too, are focused on the state level. And so, it's just really important, again, to review who those elected leaders are. And so just as a review, all North Carolina residents have one North Carolina House representative member and one North Carolina state senator who represents them in Raleigh. So that's kind of the lay of the land, and we discussed that during the last session as well. And we're going to be talking about having meetings in district with elected leaders today. But I will also say that going to Raleigh, going to Washington D.C., as some of you may have done, can also be an effective way to meet and talk with your elected leaders. And this can be educational to you and other advocates too, because you'll gain greater insight on how the General Assembly works on a day-to-day basis. And it's also a way that you can certainly show how committed you and other advocates are for a particular issue. So, the thing I will say though, and this, we could go into this during another training, or I'm sure many of you have experienced this, is coming to Raleigh, you also have to be prepared that legislators have crazy schedules while they're in session. You may have a meeting planned with that legislator, and then their plans may change for the day because a meeting gets scheduled or something else comes up. So, it's one of those things that can be a little bit hit or miss, and it's something that you need to be prepared for if you are coming to Raleigh. I'm sure many of you have done that. So when we think about meeting with elected leaders, there's four main parts of this. And some of this is really common sense, but I can't reiterate enough how doing these steps and being prepared is going to make or break whether or not the meeting you have is an effective tool and a good use of everyone's time. I've seen some meetings with elected leaders go very well, and I've seen some go very bad. And the ones that have gone better are the ones where I feel like advocates have been more prepared for the meeting going into it. And there's been a great crowd there to emphasize their points. So hopefully, I think Claire or Lamine might be able to drop in the chat. This is not the link to our scenarios, but we have a basic citizen legislative visits worksheet that can be downloaded through our toolkit that can be used to plan your own meeting with an elected leader. And those are that's what we're using to go through some of these slides here. So with scheduling, so one thing that's very important when you're thinking about meeting with an elected leader is getting the right messengers there to the table. We often encourage it to be a small group of folks because we just find those conversations to be a little bit more manageable. Of course, these can happen in many different forms or fashions. To me, the sweet spot is like 5 or 6 local advocates or representatives around the issue sitting down with an elected leader. So those right messengers need to be strategically thought about, like folks that will represent a wide range of constituents or stakeholders in the community. So maybe you would like to have a local minister there. Maybe you'd like to have a teacher. Maybe you'd like to have a businesswoman. Maybe certainly you want someone impacted by the issue that you're talking about. You need to really think, who are the right messengers that are going to be able to relate to the elected leader that we're talking to. Agreeing to dates and times within your group. This is huge too. So we really encourage you to think through, okay, who's the right messengers and group, hopefully getting agreement among those folks, and then amongst yourselves, going ahead and agreeing to some dates and times that will work for your crew. So that way, when you contact the elected leader, the next step, you're able to lay out, okay, hey, Representative so-and-so, we'd really like to meet with you to talk about this. We've got a small group of constituents. We're thinking about this location, and these are the 3 dates that work for us and times. And hopefully those coincide with something that might be doable from your elected leader. And then you need to always reconfirm prior to the meeting. Maybe if you're scheduling a meeting and it's a month out, then, a week prior to that meeting, reconfirm. Even the day before that meeting, reconfirm, so that you can make sure everyone is on the same page. As my home phone rings in the background. And I will say on this step too, and I'm sure many of you have run into this takes some negotiation. Like you might have to go back and forth between the elected leader or their office, or you might, and have to go back to your group. And a lot of times I see groups get hung up on this. They can never get past the scheduling bug because they call the elected leader and they're like, no, sorry, none of those dates or times work. And so then to take it to that next step and really make it happen can be some work. So don't underestimate there. Prepare for the meeting, do your homework. And so this is super important as well, because you want to come into the meeting with a plan and as much information as you can have. So you want to have an understanding of like, what committees are they on, whether they're, at the state level, at the county level, if they're in, on special committees, et cetera. What issues are important to them? Do some background research, find out what makes them tick. What are they passionate about? What did they get into public service about? What's their voting record? That can be helpful to look at. How have they voted on certain things pertaining to this? And last but not least, and Fawn put this reminder in, what can you thank them for? What's one thing or a few things you can find common ground around to maybe say, hey, and thanks, I appreciate how you, voted on this issue, or how you're working on this or that. That can always be helpful. And I will say that sometimes it's hard to find common ground, but you can find it, and we need to strive to do that. So there's a question in the chat, how far in advance should you schedule your meeting? I like to give it, I think a sweet spot is around 3 weeks or so. I mean, that's just a general, and, because if you do it, sometimes if you do it too far in advance, so much changes in a matter of 2 months or what have you, not only with with schedules, but also with the issue that you're working on. Sometimes I like to work on that sort of like thinking about 3 weeks out type time frame, getting in touch with the elected leader's office like right away, trying to throw out some of those dates and make it happen. And it gives you a little time to be prepared too. So that's just a time frame I like to think about. More on preparation, making sure your group is on the same page. So you need to make sure that, and I've had this happen more than once, where there's been a group of folks going in to meet with an elected leader, and in general, we think we're all on the same page on an issue. But lo and behold, you get into the conversation, and somebody within your group kind of goes off script and starts saying that they might support something that the other members of your group don't, or it really gets the meeting off track from the purpose that you want to be there. So you want to make sure in advance, certainly, that folks are on the same page. You want to make sure that you've got a specific ask. What is it specifically you are asking of this elected leader? And you don't want to leave that meeting without having had that ask happen. What are your main points and who will make them? This is also very important. And it goes along with the last thing here of who's the captain of the meeting. You don't want to go into your half-hour scheduled meeting. And I'll say too, I think half an hour is the most you should really allot or think time that you're going to get with an elected leader. Maybe you can have more. Again, I've had meetings with elected leaders. I remember a 2-hour meeting I had with Senator Fern Schubert in Marshville, North Carolina, many years ago. And I've had meetings that we thought were going to be 30 minutes and they lasted 4. But I don't like to think that it's going to last any more than half an hour. But you need to, within your group, be thinking about who's going to make what points. You're going to lay out the case and who can do that, who's going to be doing the ask, and who's kind of the captain, who's going to wrangle it back in when things, a lot of times, conversations can go sideways. And in some ways, it's like, oh yeah, our kids played baseball together and blah, and can you believe what happened in that American Legion game and blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's all well and good, but you need to have a captain of the meeting that's bringing it back to the task at hand. Then the actual meeting itself. So you want to keep the introductions quick because you don't have a lot of time. This is another thing that I've seen happen is introductions take 20 minutes and then you got 5 minutes to talk about the issue. Introductions need to be quick and you need to get down to it. State the issue and explore concerns. So you want to be able to lay out the issue as you know that you're supporting and why you think it's important, and hear back from that legislator, from that elected leader. What are some of their concerns? What are they thinking, et cetera? And then ultimately you want to get to the ask. Another thing that you want to have in mind is, who supports this and who's opposed to this. I'm not a big believer of preemptively bringing up the opposition's arguments for them. I think that's something they can, do themselves if they're willing to do that. However, you need to know what those opposition arguments are in case those come up in discussion. And then you want to confirm your next steps and any agreements that are made during the meeting. And of course, a thanks and a photo op is always good if you can. Putting that photo op on social media or ways to sort of show your gratitude, but also to build in some public accountability around the fact that you've met and discussed these things can also be a good thing. Here's one of our current state legislators, Representative Greg Meyer, a social worker as well, who talks about, kind of his perspective about meeting with constituents. And, he says a specific ask means I have something to think about. Ask me specifically what you want. And he also, is saying it makes a difference if the ask comes from someone I know. And this goes back to getting the right crowd, getting the right messengers, getting folks around the table that have a relationship with the elected leaders can go a long way. After the meeting, this is important to think about as well. Last but not least, of course, you want to debrief with your group. And I like to do this as soon after the meeting as possible. Many times it's just going to be, hey, let's stay seated here in our booth at the, at our table here at the Golden Corral, and the legislator or the elected leader leaves and goes on, and you all can stay there and enjoy the buffet and debrief what you just talked about. You can complete any you need to complete any follow-up tasks, do those sooner rather than later. Send a thank you note, share your notes with NC Child. Certainly if we are advocating on issues together, and we're trying to do this in different places, we would love to get those notes, because the thing that we're also, we're trying to gather intelligence from our end of things. And also, it helps us because, for example, our policy director, Tiffany Gladney, is going down to the legislature all the time and meeting with elected leaders, and Ashley Perkins, our lobbyist. And so, this can work really well where it's like, oh, I know you sat down with a group of constituents last week and talked about this. Here's some follow-up information, et cetera. And then, go on to the next, plan your next meeting with an elected leader. Because once you get a taste of it, I think you'll see that it can be effective and helpful. So now what we are going to do is get into action by breaking into our small groups. Just real quickly before we do that, let's see. So Fawn, you're sharing the worksheets, I see.
Hopefully this link works for folks if you didn't get it by email, and you will have to download this worksheet to be able to type into it.
Okay. So NC Child team, please help me. But what I am thinking here is, so the worksheets are in the chat, and what we're going to do is we're going to just do the breakout sessions and allow people to choose. Is that correct, Claire or Lamine?
That's
Yes.
correct. We've got some folks assigned. Some folks will choose their own. So if you just choose the geography that most closely aligns with where you live, that would be fantastic. And if there's only one person in your room, come back to the main room and we'll put you in with other folks.
Okay, and so if I read off what the scenarios were for the different geographic areas, did those still pertain?
Yes.
Should.
Okay, so real quickly, I'm going to do that. As far as if you are in the Guilford breakout, your scenario will be early education. If you're in the Forsyth breakout, Medicaid expansion. New Hanover, Medicaid expansion. The main room, the Spanish language main room, early education. Western NC, Medicaid expansion. The Piedmont, Medicaid expansion. Wake County, early ed. The Triangle, early ed. Mecklenburg, early ed. Eastern NC, early ed. So again, these worksheets, these are scenarios. We're going to have a half an hour in our breakout session. Some of the information on the worksheet is already filled out. The directions are there, and there will likely be an NC Child staff member in your breakout session as well. We're going to come back in a half an hour from those, and we're going to report back and do some last things. So let's go to our breakouts.
Am I in the Piedmont breakout room?
You're in the main room right now, but I can move you to the Piedmont breakout room.
Thank you.
I think I should
Yeah.
be in the Guilford room, but I'm not.
Is that Ebony?
No, this is
No.
Kentia.
Okay, Katia. Cool. I will move you. Guilford. Ebony, should I move you as well?
Yes, Guilford.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Yo no sé para dónde agarrar.
I don't know where to go.
Jessica and anyone else that is in the Spanish interpretation room, please do not go to a breakout room. We need you to stay here because you're going to have your breakout session in the main room so that interpretation will continue to work.
All right, there's a few other folks that haven't joined. If you'd like to go to a specific room, just let me know and I will send you there. Otherwise, you're welcome to stay here for the length of the breakout.
Hi, everyone. So I'm leading the Spanish breakout room, which is this main room. So I don't know if I should wait maybe 10 more seconds for folks to go to their breakout rooms, but if not, we can go ahead and get started in a few seconds. And I can speak in Spanish. I just wanted to say that in English for English speaking folks who are still here. But I also don't think I can translate the whole worksheet into Spanish because it's a lot of text. So I can read it in English. And if our interpreters don't mind translating that for me, that would be great. Perfect. And Angie, is it helpful if I'm in the Spanish channel or should I stay in the English channel?
For this part that you're going to be reading in English, please stay off channel or in the English because you're speaking English. But then after that, you can. So basically, you have to be in the language that you want to speak. So if you're going to speak English, be in the English room. If you're going to speak Spanish, then in the Spanish room. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, thank you. All right. Well, I wonder then if we should go ahead and get started. For the Spanish speakers here, do you all want to introduce yourselves really quick? We can just go around and I can get us started, and actually let me turn on my camera. My name is Vicki Kraus and I lead our research and data work at NC Child. And I'm so happy to be here with you all. So feel free to jump in and introduce yourself.
Mi nombre es Jessica Aguilar y yo soy
I am
padre.
Jessica Aguilar, and I am part of the PAC of NC Child, and I'm a parent advocate.
Welcome, Jessica. All right, well, that's fine if no one else wants to come off mute. Okay, great. Yes, if you're still in this main room, go ahead and select your language. So if you all should have downloaded this worksheet, and so what I can do is read through this and we can talk about this, Jessica, and work through the questions in this worksheet. So I'll go ahead and jump in. And I can also be the note taker. So we have 30 minutes to answer the questions. And what this exercise is about is thinking through the elements that are needed for a successful meeting with an elected leader. And then if we have time at the end, we can discuss what a real meeting with an elected leader in our community might look like. So a bill is being considered in the NC House of Representatives that would significantly increase funding for the child care subsidy program. The bill HB 111 is being heard in the House Child and Family Committee in 3 weeks. There is increasing bipartisan support for childcare funding, especially given the strain of the COVID-19 pandemic. Representative Barker is your local representative and serves on the House Child and Family Committee. Our ask is, will Representative Barker vote for House Bill 111 when it comes to a vote in the committee? Here's a background on Representative Barker. He is a first-term legislator who recently served as a county commissioner. She is a small business owner and a mother of 3 children, ages 14 to 19. She is a Republican who narrowly defeated her Democratic opponent in the past election. She got involved in politics because she is increasingly worried that small businesses will be unable to make it in her community, so succeed in her community. She has promised that her #1 goal will be to cut taxes. Okay, so let me switch over to Spanish. Entonces, Jessica, yo creo que somos las únicas dos.
So Jessica, I think we're the only 2 that are here. So let's go ahead and review the questions. Did you understand the scenario, like the situation that I described with the representative? Okay. So the first question is, let's say that we have a group. So who would it be? Who would be the right amount of people, like 4 to 6 people that you could bring to this meeting? Ideally, I think you want to represent a wide range of constituents at this meeting so they can sort of represent different areas and different focus areas. Do you have any ideas of who you could invite to be together at this meeting? Oh, you're muted.
Una consulta, ¿es el de Medicaid o es
Is this for the Medicaid one or is this for the early education? It's the early education one. Okay.
quiénes serían las personas a las
Okay, who would be the people that we would invite?
Perfecto. Hola, Jalix. Déjeme nada más responderle. Creo que ella también está en este
Oh,
canal.
Jalix is also in this channel.
No sé si me puede
Jalixi,
ayudar
can you hear me?
venir
Do you want to go to the Spanish channel? I don't understand when you say the channel. I hear you perfectly. Oh, yes, I hear you. Yes, it's fine in either of those. Yes, I can hear you, so no worries. Okay, great.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Este grupo sería para
So this group wants to organize a meeting with this representative so that we can do this proposal request.
de infancia.
It's for early childhood. So like we were saying, so in this example,
Sí, ahora me estoy, se me hace difícil traducir esas
it's
palabras.
hard to translate these words for me.
Por decir, aumentar el dinero que se reparte a este programa de
So they
subsidios
want to basically give more money for these subsidies
programas de cuidado infantil en el estado.
in the state.
Así que la primera pregunta sería, ¿quién serían buenas personas para
So the
este
question
programa?
would be, who would be the right person
Y
to be in that
para
group?
esto sería
I
bueno
think that it would be good to invite parents.
sí,
Yes.
padres,
Yes.
personas que puedan
Parents, and I think people that can give their testimony about why they think that it is important,
el plan de early
like the early childhood or the intervention plan.
temprana. Y tal vez buscar alguna asociación
Perhaps to find an organization that works around this topic as well. Perfect. I like what he said about inviting people that can give a testimony about why this is important to be able to do this in early intervention. It's like inviting an expert, right?
Una pregunta, porque
I have a question. When I read the text, I understood that we need to increase the amount of money, but for childcare, is that correct? Because he said something about education, but I think it's referring to the fact that we need to increase the amount of money when you need for there to be proper childcare because they need to, work for whatever reason. Is that correct? I just want to clarify what we're working on. Is that the idea? Yes.
Sí, pero recuérdate que al mismo tiempo,
But remember at the same time that when we are talking about childcare in one place, usually they have educational activities to encourage the development of children. Yes, but what I'm referring to mainly is that are we talking about daycare? Or is it more when they're going to school? That's what I wanted to clarify.
de kinder, ¿cómo le
All right, I understand. Yes, like what is the age that we're talking about? Is it school age or before school? Just so I can like sort of think mentally about what it is that we're talking about.
Sí, muy importante porque son
Very good.
¿cómo se dice? Regulados diferente.
Because these are regulated differently in different ways.
Sí, como de las edades 0 a 4.
So it's from 0 to 4, I would say.
Sí, porque ya de 4 en adelante pueden
Yeah,
aplicar.
because from 4 onward, they can apply for pre-K.
Pudiese incluir esa edad porque a veces
But we could include that age too, because
cuando no van al pre-K por alguna razón, pues los niños todavía
sometimes when they don't go to pre-K,
cuidado.
they still need sort of that help. So maybe 0 to 5, that's when they come into kindergarten. Mhm. Yep, that sounds good.
Hablamos acerca de nuestro grupo, ¿verdad?
Okay.
Los miembros de la
So we talked about people basically in the community, right?
esté en esa edad.
So in terms of who we would invite, yes, invite parents, invite maybe an expert in early childhood development that can talk about the impact that these programs can have in child development. And another thing that I thought that would be important is,
como decir, desde una perspectiva de, ¿cómo se dice?
how do I say this?
Dueños de negocios pequeños, porque como dice en el worksheet, este representante.
Because as it says in the worksheet, this representative got into politics because she was concerned about the small businesses in their community. So we could say this will support small businesses, right? Yeah, it can be explained that way because if parents have time to do their work, this is going to be something that will be a benefit to the community, and this would help them, particularly when the small businesses are starting. The owners usually don't have as much money, so if they can guarantee that kids are in a good place, parents will feel quiet, calm, and they don't have the problem of the costs, which are normally the biggest challenges to be able to pay for it. So if they're going to be mentally calm, this is going to be reflected in them being able to start working in businesses. And therefore, it will, so it is a good way to make this association that you mentioned. It caught my attention because then I was reading, I didn't think that the person was for a financial reason, which is the businesses. So how to do this relations so that the person can feel involved or affected into that. So that part is very interesting.
No, este,
Yes, Lourdes, you raised your hand. Arriba. Yeah, my name is Lourdes. I'm also a parent. This refers to early education case. They don't handle what is the school board and can they even be invited? No, I don't think so.
No, ellos trabajan en base
No, they work
se les da un
based,
presupuesto
they
y
get a budget
ellos tienen una
and
serie
they
de
have like a series of
lugares que aún
places
estos lugares son
that
negocios pequeños
some of
porque
these
hay
places are
algunas
small
que son
businesses
pequeñas
because
como guarderías
there are
que no son muy
some
grandes.
like
Se
childcares
puede
or
entrar
daycares that are not very big.
si nosotros sabemos
So if we know this is something that could answer your question perhaps a little bit, if we know or find out the legislator that we want to talk to, we're going to know what is their platform, what determined that she will support and help, knowing other person's platform. What I mean by this is like they have teenage kids that they went through probably this situation. You can get to in this way to the legislator, knowing what are the points in which you can advocate your project on. In this case, for her, it's a small businesses, so you can insert it to different ways. One of them is many daycares or small businesses that are growing, or the other option is that this generates that more families have time to work and to generate small
entonces se
businesses.
oye como que también sería
Exactly. So it sounds like it would also be a good idea to invite an owner to this daycare owners to the meeting, right?
Y bueno, siguiendo con las preguntas,
Uh, and going on with questions, we want to know about the interest of this legislator. Regarding this point, we know that they care about small businesses. I think it's a legislator, Republican, also Republican, but I think this is a real person. I don't think it's fiction.
Representante Parker. Como por decir, buscar su nombre en el internet.
So looking for their name in the internet, we can see what committees she is Republican from the Cabarrus County. She's in the committees. She's in the Health and Human Services, college education. She's in the committee of children. So it seems because she's in this committee particularly, we could talk about that. And if they could consider that proposal in that committee, that could be our ask for her.
¿A ustedes qué les parece?
What do you think?
Como por decir, a lo mejor podría ser efectivo
Could it be effective to ask if she wants to support this HB 101 proposal? But like I said, if we know that this proposal is going to be moved to the middle of different committees, and if we know that if she is in one of these committees, we could ask her if she could support and introduce this question and support it. That makes sense, or do you have any other questions or ideas of what we could ask this representative? I think it will all be developing with the next question because the first question is who's here, school or who should be involved. We said that we need a daycare parents that need their children to be in a daycare. We also said business owners that would be impacted. This, every time I'm going to read the question, kicks me out of Zoom. Who do you need to call first? I assume that it would be her assistant or her, because I don't know how small is his representation, if it's her directly, but generally we contact the assistant of the legislator, that in this case it would be, what's the name? Parker. And the next one, what would be more powerful to do, to leave a phone call or a voicemail to ask the appointment? I particularly, besides doing the phone call or leaving a voicemail, I will also send an email so that they know or confirm that we do want to contact them.
Después dice, ajá.
Here it also says that the appointment is being achieved on a Friday from 3 to 3:30. Jessica, were you going to say something? Yeah. What is the potential script? I think to pass to the meeting is to establish what would be the script and what is it that we want to say? Yeah, that is exactly the same question. So what is the issue that wants to be discussed in the meeting? I think that Jessica refers to how can we ensure that we get the appointment? What is information to include in that voicemail? For me, the first thing that I think, how do you say in Spanish, constituency?
Sí, puede ser así. Parte del distrito o miembros de su distrito, claro.
Ok, muchas gracias, Murtado. Y porque eso muchas veces eso les causa que
because this causes makes them prioritize in their list of calls, messages that they receive, because that is their way of doing. So it is important to give them that information, to tell them in what town we live in, and to name the title or the number associated with the proposal that we want to took. In this one, HB 101, 111. This way they have information to know what this junta or what this meeting is going to be about.
Adicional, creo que también es bueno
Also, I think it's a good idea to consider a little bit about what she established in her webpage or in, yeah, and how it affects a small business. So it's to put like according to what you said in your proposal, this and this impacts. That's why we would like to talk to you about it. Good point. In the scenario, like Jelixi said, we already have the appointment. So now we can continue to those questions. And I think we already answered the first one about what topic we're going to be talking, HB 101, and the need for more public funding for these programs or subsidized programs.
Hablamos acerca también de la segunda pregunta, acerca de
We also talk about the second question about your interests and concerns and how they see how important it is to help a small business, and they have interest in child and families, and how we know that she's in the committee of family and children's in the General Assembly.
Creo que no hemos hablado acerca de la tercera pregunta, acerca de qué son algunos de
I don't think that we've talked about the third questions about what are some of the roles or responsibilities of the people that will be in that meeting. So if we go through, we want an expert in child development, a small business owner, and a parent or a mother that can speak about the direct impact to their family. What do you think could be the responsibilities, meaning who's going to talk in that meeting and in what order? There is one thing I would like to add, Vicky. I think it would be good two parents, one that is going through the problem and one that was benefited by having this, or yeah, so the benefit of having this. In my opinion, I think that parents sharing their experience, two parents sharing their experience is what I think. Yeah. I think that it's very effective to start with that personal story in the community and what is the impact of this policy. So you feel the high price of childcare. It's not easy for families to be able to cover with these costs. And then we also have the expert in child development and the owner, the small business owner. I think it would be good to start with the parents, first with the one that is being affected, and then with the one that was benefited or received benefits. And then with the business owner, and finally with the expert that comes sort of to close the circle.
I would say the business owner and like the owner, what could the owner of a childcare center say at this meeting to convince the representative?
Yo sé qué decir, pero quiero que hable
I
alguien más.
know what to say, but I'm the only one talking, so I think I want to give a chance to other people. I also have been talking. I did want to say though that they can give a first-hand testimony, number one, about the need for parents to have a safe place. And also they can speak about the barriers of what happens when they don't have sufficient capacity. And when this happens, the little one is affected and so are the parents. It is a chain. And so she could give a first-hand testimony. And then, like Jessica said, after talking and comparing, about what others are going through, they can sort of talk about that. This is how I'm being affected. I feel myself affected this way. Oh, I forgot what I was going to say. It was going to be three things. And then, of course, somebody that has gone through that problem, both in terms of the consequences. I don't know. So like what happened at that moment that they couldn't solve that situation. And then perhaps a situation in which a good testimony as to why this is so necessary. So that would be like a comparison point. Because again, that person is living through that firsthand. They are seeing how parents are affected by this and sort of all the effects, no, of that can, what can happen. In that part about like from the perspective of the business owner, I think there are three different ways in which they're affected. Number one, when you have a small business and you don't have somebody to care for children, it's a double expense. And it's doubly complicated because the person has to center themselves at work, right? Focus on their business. But if that person has a childcare center too, then that type of business makes it so that, yes, people can go to work at peace and that they're able to pay for it, so they're subsidized so that it's affordable. And that they can also benefit other small businesses that are around the daycare. Because when there is a daycare or school, the businesses that are close by is, such that it's good because maybe they have to go pick up the kids and they don't have time to cook and they go by a local restaurant to buy food for that evening. So this is a daycare in a small community with a lot of other small businesses, they can all benefit. Thank you. Exactly. Okay, well, thank you so much to all three of you for sharing your thoughts. And I think we created a good plan. And I think we're going to have to end because I think the people are joining us from the small group. And I will share the things that we talked about. Thank you.
Give it a couple minutes as folks come back. I see Ebony. Hey, Ebony. Hope you're doing well. Dr. Webb with her 2022 kids background. All right, everyone. So thanks so much for participating in the breakout session. I hope that you found that exercise helpful as you may be thinking about planning your own meeting with an elected leader. We certainly hope you're thinking about that. So let's just start out and maybe just kind of do this popcorn style. And if folks have any questions or comments, please feel free to put those in the chat as well. But let's just going down the worksheet, whether you had Medicaid expansion or early education, thinking about who will attend. What's something, did something come up, or did you learn or think more deeply about something around like who needs to be at the table for these meetings? Does anybody want to talk about that?
Well, for the Fab Four, this is Dr. Chance in Richmond County, and we had the Fab Four in our group. So for the Fab Four, some of the individuals that would be in our group, and it was the early education group, would be some small business owners, childcare centers, of course, parent advocates, because we know that parent advocates can tell the best stories, especially when we're dealing with legislators, social services, local pastors of large congregations in the district. And that pastor definitely wants someone that's trustworthy, and nonprofit organizations as well from our FAB4 group. Thank you.
I want to speak up for my group because we did not get very far on the worksheet. We were very excited about meeting each other. So before we get lower on the worksheet and we don't have any answers, I'm going to just have this moment for my group. And I know Love had to go, but Tina is still here. So Tina, please feel free to jump in. This was a place where the group got very strategic, and it was really cool to hear the thoughts behind why we wanted certain people at the group. I mean, at the table. And the first one was a small business owner with young children who has child care subsidy that allows her to run her small business. I tell you, it got deep. It was great.
Yes.
Then a Republican who speaks conservatese, somebody who really could speak conservative. And then a child care provider who is also a small business owner, if possible, a small business owner who isn't directly connected to child care, but has difficulty retaining employees due to child care issues, preferably a man. Then someone connected to the Spanish speaking community, someone who voted for this representative, and then someone at the table who doesn't have kids, and a grandparent who is seeing their kids struggle with childcare. Then there was the thought that men at the table would be more liberal, the women would be more conservatives, and then there would be windows and mirrors for this representative. Mirrors who reflected who she is, and windows who are those who would make her look out and think beyond.
Wow. I love that.
We didn't get far, but we got that.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful. Yes, that's wonderful. That's the way we got to think about getting the right messengers to the table. And the way I think about it too is like, we got all those great ideas, and heck, if we're able to get 3 of those wonderful spokespeople to the meeting, we'll be doing pretty darn good. And so good job.
And Adam, there was our group had 2 additional. One was a volunteer from Representative Baker's campaign, as well as someone from Representative Barker's church. We thought that might be.
Yep, those are great ideas too. So requesting the meeting without going into super detail, what about calling up, making a phone call, leaving a voicemail? Did anything come to mind to folks about that?
I can share. I was with the Spanish language group, which was really fantastic. I was with Jalixi, Jessica, and Lourdes. And one of the things we talked about is, when you're calling them up, you obviously don't have a lot of time, especially if you're leaving a voicemail. And so some of the key things that we talked about leaving for was to mention that you're a constituent or that someone in your group, like mention who in your group that's coming is a constituent, because they are more likely to prioritize a meeting with you as your representative. And then be very specific about what it is that you want to talk about. So if we're talking about specific bills, saying HB 111, and that way that's easy for them to understand. And then maybe letting them know, like obviously your contact information, how they can get in touch, and who plans to be present at that meeting, I think are things that you really want to get across.
Yes, wonderful. And Dr. Chance, would you like to share again, please?
Yes. Again, in FAB4, we talked about appealing to her as a mother during the conversation, and also talk about what issues that we're dealing with as it relates to COVID, and because that was actually one of the main issues, and challenges that childcare owners that are facing, because a lot of times with the childcare owners, they're facing issues as it relates to subsidy rates and how low they are. So talking about that and sharing the statistics, numbers, when you share numbers, they really listen to that. So thinking about sharing the numbers, how increased childcare is needed, and addressing the low rate of pay for childcare providers. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, wonderful points. Well, thinking about, so you got your meeting time, date, location set up, you're preparing for your meeting, that section. Thinking about the issue, their concerns. How about roles? Did folks talk about, I must say, I feel like this is hugely important in these meetings. So did you all talk about the roles, and what were some of the things that were said about that?
Yes, our group talked about having a spokesperson / facilitator, having each person share their personal interest or story if it applied to the topic, having a note taker, of course, to be sure that you captured everything that was discussed. And then we had a comment that state and county funds leverage together to get great financial return or revenue when parents can work and pay for income taxes. Was one of the roles that we thought would bring some leverage to the meeting.
We also mentioned someone there to talk in numbers, to say, to give the data and facts. And so sometimes numbers well, not sometimes, oftentimes numbers can really kind of hone in the importance and the value of the need and the ask.
Absolutely, Ebony, for sure. And a lot of times, and Vicky is the data person too, but I think local numbers can help too. Like, oh, and here in Guilford County or here in Richmond County brings it home. Or disaggregated data can also be helpful.
That's something that we talked about in our group, and Kaylin brought it up beautifully, is numbers are important, but you don't want it to be the stuffy old 30% of people, blah, blah, blah. Just having somebody there with a personal story that can say, I own a small business, 13 of my employees have had to quit because they don't have childcare and can't afford it or whatever. Like, it's data, but it's not like big, broad. It's tied to like a real person and a story that they'll remember.
Yeah, in my group, Jessica made a really great point about kind of making the connections between, so if we have a small business owner there talking about the impact on small businesses of not having expanded, funding for subsidies, but also that when that's the case, parents aren't able to go to work, right? Because they don't have childcare. And so framing this as a workforce issue as well can be really effective.
Absolutely. And that all, of course, ties into to the background and what you may know about the elected leader and their history and what arguments might work better, for lack of a better term. What about the ask? This is another thing that I think